Hello, Chris, aka Mr. Extemporary Art. Welcome to the Epic Kate podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Heartfelt conversations can change the world. Here's the Epic Kate podcast.
You're a mystery. You're an enigma to me. That there's these aspects of your life that you've talked a bit about, but not so much. And knowing you as a fellow friend / fellow YouTube creator, you've struggled in wondering how much of your struggle to put out there. Like, is it going to take away from your professionalism? Is it going to make you more endeared and relevant to people? And yeah, there's so many things I want to talk about with you. I would like to jump in to your art journey being a therapy for you, if that's a good place for you to start.
Yeah, of course. So we were speaking a little bit before how it's gone from being a therapy to being therapeutic. And certainly growing up, I had a lot of physical health problems with undiagnosed thyroid and a bunch of other stuff that was more complicated than the National Health Service could figure out at the time. And then a few other things sort of happening, and then sort of fast forward a few years and started college to do the art. Still not 100%. There was a time where I couldn't really do the art because I physically couldn't do it. But then once I could, it was kind of like a good way to sort of unpack that and to understand myself and what had been going on. And I used to create those little characters and worlds. And then as time went on, it was more around the therapeutic side of things, around being in the world and painting the landscape or painting various like life drawing and things like that. So it's really evolved, but there is like a lot of self-portraits from when I was 18, 19, I think, maybe a bit younger. And those are quite sort of emotive in the sense of like the emotion and the facial expressions are not necessarily rendered that great. My skills have got better, but the therapy behind them through trying to understand like that growing up and not having the connection to your peers because of health problems art was very important at that time. And I then went on to university and it was more academic at that time, but a lot of creative input. And yeah, university was more, they wanted to bring out the creativity, which I had in spades anyway. I had all that. So but that was when I was really trying to figure out what sort of artist I wanted to be. And I mean, certainly in recent years, it's been more therapeutic. It's just nice to be tactile and move paint around, and I'm painting more for like a vocation and a purpose to try and bring it more to full time and salesy more and connect to people.
So I want to go back. I want to go back to the childhood so how old were you and when these health issues started rearing their ugly head, and like how did that affect your childhood? Like, were you bedridden? Was it how intense was it?
Yeah, so I was bedridden for about 9 months, a year or so. I could go down the stairs like once, and then I was on the sofa and go back up once, and then that would be, that was the effort of doing that kept my muscles okay. But going back just before that time, I started art when I was like 4 years old, roughly. Always drawing, always creating, like as kids do, like just the worlds of different things. But then as I got a little bit older, I went with the older kids and did a cartoon dinosaur course and to learn how to draw all the little circles to get them in proportion. And so that was really fun. So I was always drawing at that time. And then I caught glandular fever when I was 9 and didn't really ever recover from that. So yeah, it was, had to have later blood tests at that age. And I remember getting given the Goofy movie as a sort of reward for going through that. And so that was a very arty movie and very creative. So I remember that one. But yeah, just just remember the blood tests, and they didn't really know what was going on, and glandular fever can eat the thyroid. So, or there's research to suggest that, and so it ended up being that my thyroid was kind of there, like I had enough in my system, but it just wasn't converting into. So something broke in that glandular fever time. Yeah, glandular fever for about a month. Then on and off school, kept getting like flu-like symptoms, come back every 6 to 8 weeks or so,
Wow.
for quite a few years, and yeah, so it's all a bit of a blur really, and I've never really talked about it on public thing, but I'm sure there's others who've gone through similar, and
Oh yeah.
I actually talked to someone on the podcast recently who, for different reasons, had 10 years of illness as well. So, and yeah, it's interesting how there's others out there, and I met later them through what was they thought I had ME, they thought I had remember the long word, but yeah, they thought I had ME, and so I met a load of people online, so that was really helpful. Had a social online thing there. So internet's always been like quite natural to be amongst people and to talk, not video so much, but forums and that sort of thing.
I imagine that must have been pretty isolating for you. Did you like see the art of these figures like in your head, just kind of building a world while you were dealing with being isolated?
I mean, I had quite an imagination, but yeah, there's times where I wanted to draw, but it couldn't utilize it at that time, which was quite difficult. And then I've had a brief stint with secondary school when I was about 11, so went back then, but I think it's only there for like a year or maybe even one term, and then didn't get back since then. So quite often with my A levels and GCSEs about, that was 11 when I was 16, 17, I think, and still wasn't perfect. I did like a few hours a week just to catch up.
Is it like a deal of really wanting to learn how to create the things that you saw in your head?
I think at that stage, because I was so unwell, I just I also started climbing when I was 8 years old, so just before 9. So my dream was, I will climb again. I had that sort of. I didn't climb again until I was 20, but I had, but that sort of dream to climb again and draw again really kept me going. But it's more the fitness, because the physical, that sort of embodied, physical I wanted to get back to.
So when did you start to re-enter the normal world and the normal healthier world?
Well, I started when I was 16, 17, going to college for A levels and things, but I still wasn't 100%. I had to really manage my energy. I didn't, I suppose, didn't really get really strong until later. And then, I mean, I started university, but I still wasn't 100%. And I was in a long-term relationship at that time. And then the drinking, because there's a video about the going into recovery with the drinking and drugs, that sort of stuff started around, well, the drinking certainly started around the second year of uni and got really bad in the third year when we split up, probably because of the drinking and wanting more quality time with me and being too young to really communicate that and not really understanding how big of a problem I had. Then, of course, the drugs started later, and then I gave those up on 1st of December 2017, so I haven't done drink or drugs since then, and my life completely turned around because there was a period after, this is all ran, it's all a bit of a blur, but I went to university from 2009 to 2012. A lot of really good stuff happened. A lot of the I went to Swansea, so I surfed a bit, climbed some of the cliffs, and had all of that. When that ended in 2012, I didn't really paint again till 2016, and then still, but I didn't really start to paint until giving up the drink and drugs, really, and then went back to my art, went back to my fitness, went back to basically just reclaimed who I was, basically, and reclaimed, and it was 2019, I think, was the what kind of class is it as the first original that sold for a reasonable amount of money, whereas others I had sold a few the year before, but £10, £20, £30, nothing too high. But that's the first one that was in triple digits. So.
And so was it blah, 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 blah. What pulled you out of that destructive lifestyle? Like, what was the catalyst to stop everything?
It was the moment where I blacked out. Yeah, I was about to go home, and I had friends later, so thought I'd have one more hit, just keep it going, get some energy. Not realizing that they mixed it with other stuff, and I kind of blinked, and then I couldn't really walk that well at the time because of the effects, and I blinked and I was in a different room upstairs. And 4 hours had gone by. So I was like, "What's happened in the last 4 hours?" And I literally blinked and teleported. Yeah, it was. And then the thing that really was a catalyst was the fact that despite that really horrible experience, I was still trying to destroy myself. And I was like, no, this has to stop now. So I think about probably 6 months later, no, 6 weeks later, I think. Yeah, I think I seeked help and something like that anyway. So.
Wow. Was it a gradual letting go, or was it just like a cold turkey?
It was gradual to get to the destroying sort of stage. I would really drink a bit, and then it would get worse, and I would only use the drugs like once a year, then it get worse. But the actual stopping was quite instant. It's like as soon as I decided to get to that first meeting, I'd already decided. And the thing is, because I had such a good upbringing, and I had, I just want to make clear that I had none of the makings of, an addict. And it was, I had a really good upbringing apart from being, the health stuff. But my parents were great, and they're very supportive, and they know obviously I had to tell them at some point. And I don't know what the question was now, but I'd already tried to stop on my own already. I got to 10 months on my own out of willpower alone, but then thought, I can have it's a birthday, I can have half a pint. Didn't stop at half a pint, of course, and then I was back in it again because I'd done that quite a few times before entering the rooms. By the time I'd entered, I was like, I've made that decision now, and got a lot of help. And that actually it's strange talking about it actually because of the pandemic, I haven't really been going to a lot of meetings recently. For a long time, and I've kept in touch with people, and I've just been thinking, should I go back to meetings again? Because not because of thinking I'll go back to it, but just because getting just a little bit frustrated with life and thinking, where's that calm and clarity and just being, life and life terms, where's that gone, sort of thing. So it's more for that side of things.
There's just so much power in our experiences and what we've come through and what's helped us to get through them. And so I really appreciate just hearing, especially it takes so much courage. Like you were talking about, but I had a good upbringing. It's not my parents' fault. Like it's not a character flaw to have gone through these things. It's not anybody's fault.
It's just so funny how people have like a stereotype of what it may be. Like I've met people who've done all the things, and they're lovely people, and I've had people who've had good parents, and people who've had parents who are using as well, and there's a whole mix. And I just didn't want, it'd be fine if it was my story, but just people have this kind of stereotype of what it might mean, and that certainly wasn't my story.
Would you mind me asking you, like, what led you to take up these things?
Yeah, I mean, I've been asking myself that question for quite a while, because what's funny is I was very anti-drugs growing up, and I was around it a lot, being in the climbing world, probably the surfing world as well, actually. Certainly the climbing world, I can only talk about my own experience, but yeah, there's a lot of drugs around, a lot of parties happening, and I would always leave when it got a bit too crazy. But I think it's just because drinking is legal, and in the UK we can start from 18, and I didn't start till I was 18. So it was kind of that moment where I just had the 1 pint, and the next day I had another pint, and I was fine. I was the week, and then it just started building up, and found that I naturally had that connection to liking not only the taste but also just the pub culture and things. I think also because I recently found out that I'm ADHD. I'm 35 now. Found out when I was about 30 odd, and I've only had the National Health Service diagnosis in the last few months. So it's all kind of new. But because I didn't know that at the time, in order to help me socialize, because I didn't really know who I was drinking, and that, at least I thought it helped, even though I probably looked like a fool, sort of talking rubbish. But I felt like it helped at the time. But so because that was getting quite bad, I think because when it stopped working and didn't really feel like it was that need. I think my defenses were just down. I'd left the relationship for the drink. I was just dating someone, and I wasn't really sure about that. And then one friend said, "Yeah, we know you don't do it, but just to let you know, we will be tonight." And I was like, "Okay, what do you mean okay?" It's like, "Yeah, I'll join you." So I literally don't know why, and then I just spent years trying to chase that memory of, because the first time was actually an experience, and it wasn't too bad, but it just got very dark very quickly after that, in terms of it not producing what I wanted, and also, well, really, it was all about connection to self. Really, I didn't know who I was, whereas now I know myself fairly well, and I'm still on that journey of discovering myself more. Also with how I like express myself in the videos, because that's what I like about yours. You're so confident in who you are and your family, and how you portray that. And I'm still trying new ways, because at the moment I don't want to be carrying a camera around with me every time I paint, and I'm trying to figure out a new way to create videos. And so yeah, that's part of it. I know who I am now. I'm still discovering more about that, and I always wondered, will my past catch up with me, and people won't think it's that professional. But I think it makes us human. I think it makes us have that connection, and it means I can relate to people who have maybe gone for it themselves, or various other things. Yeah, and that, yeah,
and like not carry any judgment, because you know how easy it is to just fall for that, just to want to chase that good feeling and to be outside of yourself. But so when did with sobriety the art came back?
yeah. The art was starting to come back a little bit while I was using towards the end, but only little scribbles and things, and nothing major. But when I had I had a breakdown in March 2017 and went back to drugs for a little while, and then stopped in December. So yeah, I guess it was kind of the beginning of 2018 is when I started really painting, and it took a little while to get what I call getting the rust off and getting used to painting again. But then yeah, it's back to being second nature, and it's painting for the last 5-6 years pretty much every day now, or at least every week. Yeah, so yeah, it feels weird how it's become comfortable, and found my style, and connected to a lot of people. Started the podcast, started YouTube, because YouTube started in the pandemic when I had quite a few shows cancelled. So, but yeah, going from sort of partying and that, and then realizing actually I don't like parties. I don't like pubs, and I'm quite happy to just stay at home and paint most of the time. So it's funny how that changes.
What is it like when you paint? Does painting kind of have its own kind of high of expression and color and stuff?
Yeah, it's kind of the opposite in a way, in that you're in that meditation. It's kind of like very calming. Well, not always. There are some stressful moments with painting when you're trying to get it to just behave and to. So yeah, the challenge is what brings me back though, and it's funny that moment to have like enough time that you can really give to it, because I'm not really one to just take pockets of time doing like an hour here and there. I need to have an afternoon and just really be in the painting. But yeah, it's just pushing paint around. It just feels good, and you're connected to it. But I'm also adding like the emotion and mood onto it, and I can't paint in a kind of a weird way. I don't paint like logically with techniques. I've got a technique in my toolbox. So I kind of know all these things, but I'm kind of thinking like if I'm drawing a figure going through water, I'm thinking, what does that feel like? How is that arm going to be more that muscle? And I'm just really sort of sculpturally thinking how does this work? And then yeah, there are techniques to put in there, but it's not the techniques to build it up as such. It's more think about the movement of that person, and I paint quite thick in that sense as well. So
yes, and you are represented on my walls here. This is the there, the big blue one is the beautiful sketches you made of the special baby shower party that you guys threw me through the mail.
Yeah, that one was an interesting one because I had quite a few people, and I thought I can't do these portraits in my normal way because we'll be here for like months. So I was like, do you guys mind if I just sort of stylize it and just go for it? And it may not look like you, but it will be you kind of. And they went, yeah, and they loved it. So yeah.
It turned out so cool. And over here we have the nostrils of death, which is a sign out I do on some of my more lighthearted vlogs. Now you were doing vlogging really consistently, and then you kind of got a little burnt out on it and realized your real passion is painting. And now you're focusing more on the painting, and you've just started a podcast that is just exploding.
Yeah, I mean, it's had a bit of a lull, but it's hit 1,000 people in under 3 months and really connected to people. I've got a few well-known art YouTube people coming on soon, so we'll see how that does. But they'll share it on their socials. So yeah, it's some people that I never thought I would talk to, and obviously we started with our pilot episode, which is great because I was trying out different styles and because I'm comfortable with you, so we just tried out different things, and I don't know what YouTube's doing because it was like at 1.1, it's at 1K, it's at 900 or something. It's going. I don't know. They seem to have gone. Those aren't real views, and it goes back up again. So yeah, but the first 3 episodes have all got 900 and something views, and then the other one is just creeping up on 650 now, even though it was a slow start. Like it had 18 views for about 2 days. I was going, oh, come on. And then it just suddenly shot up. So yeah, to have that success is really strange because I've not had that with the art YouTube, and I'm still trying to find what videos, what format to do them in 3 years later. Whereas this, I just get to chat to cool, interesting people, creative people, and then it seems to be doing quite well. And I try some photos in there when I can. So.
And we were talking earlier that a big passion of yours for this podcast is just encouraging people to not get locked up in professionalism, not getting frozen by fear of starting.
Yeah.
What kind of, would you like to add any more to that? Like what that means to you?
Well, so you have the perfectionism where they're scared of the blank page, but you also have professionalism where I guess like myself, sometimes I wonder, can I do that as a professional artist? Does that work? And can I talk about my past? Can I be on YouTube doing vlogs and things? And actually, a lot of those who are doing well are those who don't take themselves too seriously and have other sides to themselves. And where the professionalism comes in is that you're delivering the image on time, and you're doing the invoices in the right way, and you're communicating with your clients in the right way, but also knowing when to have fun and understanding that. So yeah, it doesn't have to be professionalism, and you don't wear a suit in art, but you don't need to have that mindset either. Yeah.
Sounds like a lot of things to think about. Sounds like it could be kind of pretty overwhelming, balancing the creative side of the brain and the logistics side of the brain.
Yeah, and we have talked a bit about that with some of the podcast guests around balancing business and the creative side, and there's a lot of hats and a lot of plate spinning, and trying to find time to actually paint in amongst all that is challenging at times. And and also trying to keep the living space tidy and organized. And I'm still in the process of organizing the home studio and getting it as I want. And yeah, it's getting there. And yeah, I keep thinking I should churn stuff out, but actually you need to refill the creative well and create that feedback loop and actually have something to say in response to the world rather than just being in like a vacuum and in your studio painting.
That's an interesting concept there, that being a vacuum, it's almost like it's just the echo chamber that we put ourselves in. Is there a painting behind you that means that has a message, that means something special to you that you would like to talk a bit about?
Yeah, you can't really see that one, but yeah, the one up there is the logo now for Temporary Art, and it's called "Your Mind Is Amazed, Dude."
It's
And
called what?
your mind is amazed, dude. And it's all about sort of understanding yourself and how you've got to sort of unlock your mind, particularly with the ADHD, and if you have things that you're not quite sure about, understanding yourself in general as well. And yeah, there's that was the very first, because it's in mirrors. I'm getting all sorts of weird because that's the very first one. It's kind of quite special to me in that it has a lot of layers, and underneath the mouth I put you can paint a new you, so on the time lapse you can see it, which is quite cool. And yeah, and then the one you can't really see that way see is an astronaut with fish around them, and it's kind of that kind of feeling like an alien and being an explorer of both worlds, how we don't really know much about the ocean but we don't really know much about space either. And yeah, it's kind of being like a fish out of water. So cliche there, and kind of feeling like a new explorer of the world, even though everyone else seems to have been here a while. And yeah, that kind of concept of being undiagnosed ADHD and not knowing why I feel different and being like a bit of an alien on this planet. And so yeah, there's been a lot of space kind of exploration and astronaut kind of paintings as well.
So is it like you just will paint a bunch of astronauts until you get it out of your system and then you'll do something else?
Yeah, because what's interesting is I did a like marketing course thing, and they said look at different themes, and I wasn't aiming to have themes, but as you go through, I painted quite a few astronauts, so they did quite a few. So yeah, it seems to be the way where it's not that I paint them all at once, but they kind of just creep back in, and then you source them, and then you have other things that creep in now and again, and you see the way things go. And yeah, and I think there's this group consciousness in creativity, because sometimes you see things and go, because I used to paint a lot of hoodie figures without a face, and then apparently that's a thing now. And I was like, when did that happen? Did I start that, or was that been a thing for a while? So yeah, it's strange how that happens.
Yeah, like people are being inspired about something from different angles and different perspectives all over the place.
Yeah, and seems to come up with the same conclusion sometimes, which is it's different, but you go, it's different style, but that's definitely the same image. Yeah, very strange, because I painted like a dude with like a fish hat and things, and then having like the fishbowl to the side, and then someone else drew the same thing but in a completely different style. It's like that's not really a genre, really. So, yeah, very strange how that happens.
We interrupt this program to tell you about Chris's book. Take it away, Chris.
Thank you for watching the conversation with me and Katie. It's always fun to catch up with another creative, another YouTube person. So I do have a book out. It's a bit of a shameless plug, but I've been writing this for the last 2 or 3 years, and it is The Art of Chris Shopland, aka Exemplary Art. All of my artwork, complete with ISBN. You can order it directly from the publisher, Blurb, and the link will be in the description. So it has all my artwork, various photos, and if you want a high quality reproduction, then those are on my website. But this is a good way to have all of the various artworks with explanations around the different themes and why I create them and the work that goes into them. It covers the last 15 or 20 odd years through the uni days up to present day, including the Upfest Festival and various gallery shows that happened about 6 months ago. So The Art of Chris Shopland, aka Exemplary Art, is out now.
How does art and spirituality affect you? Is that an interesting question? Is that a too broad of a question?
No, that's great because I think that art is like the nature of seeing. Like you really are looking when you're drawing something, particularly from observation. So when I'm out, I'm really noticing all the little like bumblebees and the flowers, and or noticing people having conversations, and so it's really being in the moment, I would say, and it does certainly connect you with yourself, and so I don't often think of it as a spiritual thing, but it does connect you. It does have that connection, and I do often say that I'm just a channel that the muse comes in, and I have this idea, and it's kind of a collaboration with the painting and with the drawing. It's not just me creating the thing, and I'm like, I'm not necessarily fully in control, which is quite fun to let go of, and you have to let go of that, sort of, let go of control.
That's such an interesting concept. I've been listening to a lot of podcasts and things of all aspects of weird, and there's a lot of people talking about their higher selves and that whole mindfulness and in the moment thing. Like, so do you think that's your higher self that's you're painting with?
Yeah, I mean, the artist way describes it as the great creator, and so it talks about it being a spiritual practice, and I can relate to a lot of what that book says, even though it's a little bit outdated now because it mentions a lot of things that pre-internet, but I hope you have an update at some point. But it still works, it's still a great book, and it still helps people unblock their creative block. But it talks about the spiritual side, and I can really relate to that, I think.
So what's your advice to people that are afraid of the blank page?
Just get rid of it. So just add paint on. I don't know. Just go for it. Create a background and just see what the paint does, and then see if you can see any shapes within that, and then you can always turn the page over and start again. Or if it's a canvas, you can sand it down and paint it again. So it's not permanent, especially when it's painting. There are other mediums that are more difficult to overcome, but they've all got their little tricks of how you can rectify it and change it. And so just enjoy all the layers of mistakes, because that's what makes the painting so good.
So basically, if somebody has a pristine blank page, the first thing they should do is just put a splotch on it somewhere so that it's not pristine anymore.
Yeah, of course. And I think a lot of people want that one to be perfect, but you can always bring whatever you learn in that one into the next painting. Is what I try and remember. So if that doesn't work, put that to one side. In a few years' time, I might know what to do with it, and then I can go back onto the next blank canvas or the next page in the sketchbook. Yeah,
I just can't imagine how frustrating it is when you're ready to work on something and you can't find it because there's too many canvases to go through.
Yeah, I suppose if you have that one idea of that one painting, you now know what to do with it, and that can be frustrating. But generally speaking, I forget that I've made them, and then I come across them later and go, "Oh yeah, I forgot about this one." Yeah.
Oh man, is there something that you really, really want people out there to know about people who are in recovery, or people who have ADHD and have been diagnosed later on in life and felt just like, why is my brain different from everyone else's? And these kind of things. Is there something that you've learned that you would like to pass on to them?
I think for me, it's just finding community, finding others who have gone through it. So with recovery, it was finding the rooms, finding others because no one judges you there because they've all done the same thing. So you can't judge those who've done the same thing. And it's great because it takes the pressure off, and you just get to talk about your experiences. And so find community. And there's plenty of ADHD. Actually, I don't know if there is plenty anymore, but there used to be quite a few groups with ADHD where you can get together and socialize and things. So I don't know what the landscape is like now, but there used to be a lot of them. So worth looking out. And of course, the internet's great for forums and things like that. So Yeah, I'll say with the recovery, it's probably better to do a few in-person ones and do it through the official ways. There's a few online ones as well, through the official websites, through the websites and things.
Cool. Is there any last thing that you would like to say to our wonderful listeners? Oh, I want to say, of course, we will put the links to all of your channels, the Red and Yellow Makes Ginger podcast, and your personal art channel, and anything else, your website where people can purchase your amazing artworks.
Yeah, all different merch and things. Yeah,
Merch.
Yeah, yeah. I suppose the last thing I would want to say is that you never know which direction you're going to go in, because I was terrified of video, and now look where it's taking me. So yeah, you can try different things out and see if it fits, and you can learn these skills. A lot of these things are skills. So yeah, never sort of limit yourself to where you may end up, I would say. And I'm going to keep exploring and see where I end up after YouTube and on this podcast. So you never know.
Yeah, that's really inspiring indeed, that like there was a time when you were so far from that.
Yeah.
You were just stuck in spirals, and your art was lying dormant in your heart, and now it's so cool to be able to see how far you've come.
Yeah, for sure. It's just I can imagine this life before, and I went back to fitness at the same time. So yeah, that's all built up. So yeah, completely just reclaimed my life, because the thing with recovery is like it was always the person that I was and wanted to be, but I had this barrier in the way that I need to get rid of. So with help with community, I'm still working on things, but life is certainly a lot different now.
I'm so glad, and I'm so glad that you're here. Like, oh man, and that we're fellow YouTuber friends, and that we could have this conversation. So yes, thank you for being here. Thank you for you listening. I hope you will leave a comment and say Chris is awesome and his art is wow. That's your homework comment. And yes, the way that I end my conversations is I give hugs. Hugs. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe.
I should know by now, when the sun goes down, the earth's gonna turn and the heaven's gonna burn again. The earth's gonna turn and the heaven's gonna burn again.